It's a little loud.
Yes. I was going to say it's a little loud, but I can definitely hear it.
Okay. Check my audio settings. Okay. We are live, but not sent out to patrons, guys. Gotta get the link.
Gotcha.
That is so loud.
My typing? I'll be better once we're live, I promise.
You gotta get the mic arm. That's where it's at.
I know. That's what I'm trying. Like, I just redid the studio, so I'm trying to like find a new setup. So I guess that's what I'm gonna have to do is just get a mic arm.
It's pretty legit. Plus, it looks really cool. Like when people come over, they're like, "Wow, what do you do?"
That is true. I mean, I have the TV mounted on an arm above the computer so that I can see it when I'm painting. So I'm like, I just need to make this an entire like setup. That's what I think I need to do.
Patreon.com.
Why is this not working? Oh, there we go.
I'm gonna G-chat you a link quick.
Okay.
And just click on it and let me know if you see us. That's a good sign.
Do I see us? Are we there?
John.
Yes, I see us.
All right, now I'm sending another. This will probably show up as another G-chat for like the show.
Ah, perfect. Yep.
Unlike last week when I couldn't figure that out.
I have so many, like in my Google Hangouts, there's so many conversations from us. I'm like, I've got to figure out how to clean this up.
So if you go into it right now, if you look at your little window, you can hit the gear and turn off notifications and conversation history. Or you can just turn off conversation history. I turn off notifications because otherwise you hear the beeps on the show.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't matter if you don't. All right, we are live. Potentially being watched.
Potentially.
It's hard to say. Got my sweet Creep Show t-shirt on.
Sick. I like it. That's really cool. Where did you get that?
That's like an OG, like original edition Fright Rags. Like when they first came around, they were like a much smaller outfit than they are now. Like they really blew up pretty huge.
Yeah.
There we go. That looks normal. So what are you up to?
I mean, I have to go to North Carolina later this week for work, so I literally came home, walked the dogs, and was like, our house is a complete wreck, and the dog sitter is going to like not want to come here. So pretty much been cleaning. And I have 57 giant boards in my house because I'm doing all of the elevator lobby artwork for a hotel in Atlanta, and it's taking over my entire house.
Do you sneak like weird Satan sex symbols into your hotel art?
I should, because this would be a prime opportunity to, because there's a lot of there's some like texture going in, and then there's some paint. So
Yeah.
I should do it like as an underneath layer and then do it on top.
At my last TV station, I used to hide Star Wars sound effects and promos. Like R2D2.
Did anyone ever catch on?
No, R2D2, and I had like lightsaber sounds. I would just like put them under the mix, like use them as sound effects, but then kind of distort them. And I used a Wilhelm scream once, but it was like very difficult because if you've ever heard like the bass Wilhelm scream, like usually you hear it all affected and sci-fi sounding.
Yeah.
But the actual scream, like the original file, is it's just a dude screaming. So like you have to do a lot to it to hide it.
Gotcha.
That one was tough.
That's impressive, though. I mean, that's a lot of dedication.
Yeah, I kind of hated working there, and it was just sort of my way to enjoy myself, I guess.
Yeah, I might need to. I'm sure halfway through, because I haven't even started any of these boards yet. So I'm sure halfway through, I'm going to completely regret taking this commission. So I need to set up something to keep me interested in them.
Hey, dude, money's money.
I know. Well, it paid for a new AC. It's paid for quite a few things. So I'm like, eh.
So you're like, so you work like that, like contract work?
Yeah, I do both. So I work full time for this company doing, well, we're an art consulting company, and I am a like senior project manager, whatever. I basically just make sure all of the artwork shows up where it's supposed to show up. And then on top of that, I do contract work for my company as well as some other people as like a side job, which is just as intensive as my daytime job. So my weekends are not weekends, but like you said, money is money.
So you're like Ethan Embry. Did you see that movie where he's a painter?
The Devil's Candy?
Yeah.
No, I started watching it and I haven't
He's like a freelance painter who's like doing a commission in the movie.
Yes.
And then he gets possessed by the devil, and he makes a really cool painting.
Maybe that's what needs to happen.
And he's like, oh,
so
shit.
I can like make it big.
Yeah, like he like basically goes, he's painting. You would really like that movie.
That's what I keep hearing, like these great things about it. And I'm like, I need to sit down and watch it, and I just haven't made the time to.
He's painting this like airy, like floral thing. I swear it's for a hotel, or it's for some kind of like, you know, very just kind of milquetoast kind of place.
Yeah.
And he goes into this weird trance, and they have this great montage of him in a trance, like painting, and he's using weird spray paint things, and he's doing all this crap, and then he just like comes out of it, and he's just got this like terrifying devil picture, but there's just, I mean, it's weird. It kind of loses itself in some places, but
yeah,
there's a whole plot about like art talent agency being interested in his work, but they're like, this dude is clearly the devil, like the actual devil.
Okay. So it's a bit like, what is it? I can't think of it. Any of those, I know what I'm trying to say. I will have to watch it. That's all what it boils down to.
I'm sure there's lots of good symbols in there.
Yes. What is it? I'm trying to think of the movie, like The Ninth Gate. Isn't that where like he's like trying to find a book for the devil?
I never saw The Ninth Gate.
I remember it being pretty good, but I think I saw it when I was younger, so I don't know how well it stands up. And then what's the one where the devil's the lawyer?
Oh, Devil's Advocate.
Oh yeah. I don't know why I couldn't remember that one.
That movie's the shit. I love that movie.
Yeah.
That's
I'm like I've always really liked movies where the devil's like a pretty prominent character, but
like a cool dude in a suit.
Yeah. Like
Al Pacino.
That's how I imagine him.
Pacino, especially like at that point in his career, was such a inspired choice for the devil.
Oh, for sure.
Because he just like chewing scenery.
Yeah, maybe not anymore. He's
pretty old now.
Yeah.
To be fair.
It's a little more erratic now, but yeah, in his prime, for sure. So it is. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. It's been a minute. Both of them, actually. I think The Ninth Gate had Johnny Depp. Isn't that who was in it?
It sounds right.
It is what it is.
Seen any good gifts this week?
I don't think so. Besides the one that that Andy sent. That as soon as he sent it, he was like, "Oh, I saw that you liked it." Where it's Antonio Banderas. Hold on, I'll find it and resend it to you.
I can't remember what it was though.
I saw that one and it was pretty good. Let's look for some. Ooh. Okay, typing mother into Twitter is not very helpful.
What kind of dog situation over there? Oh, I'm worried about them eating them. Sorry, did you find anything?
I'm looking.
It was on Slack today, wasn't it?
Oh, I wasn't on Slack today.
I definitely remember seeing some kind of Antonio Banderas-y thing, but I don't remember what it was.
I think it was, which email was it? I know we had two. Hold on.
You know who we didn't even talk about that I want to make sure we talk about? Michelle Pfeiffer is actually really good in this movie.
I mean, I've always loved Michelle Pfeiffer. Like, she is...
Between this and Wizard of Lies, which is the HBO thing about Bernie Madoff. She plays Bernie Madoff's wife.
Oh, that's right.
Dude, she murders in that movie. She's so good.
I didn't watch that either. I have such a long list. I need to...
I've seen it twice. It's like one of my favorite things this year.
I was going to say, damn.
Is it good? I actually have been wanting to watch it as well.
I mean, I'm just like... I have always had a super fascination with like when white collar crime like that comes crumbling down. Like I'm obsessed with Enron's collapse and all that stuff. So I really enjoy that story. But she, like, De Niro's kind of just De Niro. Like, De Niro looks spookily like him in the movie because they give him this prosthetic nose and the hair, but he's literally just acting like De Niro, like old De Niro, which is kind of funny. But she is just like a different person in that movie. She is
who is it that you're talking about?
Michelle Pfeiffer. Because I was saying we didn't really talk about her in the conversation, but she's really good in this movie.
Oh yeah, but like it's funny. I actually don't. I'm curious. Maybe you guys know. Like Michelle Pfeiffer, I think it was one of those people who like didn't want to work that much because like I feel like she could have.
It felt like she disappeared for a while.
I think you're right, John. Like, I feel like for some reason she took a break or like something. Like, someone's had a conversation about it, and now I don't know where I would have seen that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like there's no reason she shouldn't be working more. To your point, like she's good in this.
Like, yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I do recommend that you see it. It's very good.
All right, I'll have to put it on my list.
I'll watch it. I gotta catch up on The Deuce first, though.
Is that good? I haven't checked that out either.
It's on my list, yeah.
I mean, it's David Simon, so it's self-recommending in my opinion. But I haven't started watching it. Guys, I'm going to talk about on the pre-show. So someone sent me, Monica, one of our dear patrons, sent me the Instant Business Dictionary.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's from. Hold on, let me look at the publication date on this bad boy because 71.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. 3,200 special business words and terms defined.
Special.
Yeah, they're definitely special. So I was going to from the movie, but that's threading a needle. I can't bother. So I'll find something else.
I found a sweet GIF.
Oh yeah. Is it from the movie?
No, it's from the Emmys when Colbert was like ripping Trump a new one, and he made a joke about Alec Baldwin, and they cut to Alec Baldwin, and he went like he made the Trump like face just like very briefly at the camera. It was pretty sweet.
Too easy. It's too easy anymore.
No, it's never over there.
Oh Lord.
Much of a spoiler for me to use the word allegory as the word of the day?
No, I don't think so.
It's not I don't think it's a spoiler.
No.
Like the people who are reacting to this movie like they wanted something that's not this movie. I think I hate them. So,
Well,
I
don't know.
like,
Don't we all kind of feel
actually.
that? Listen, I don't want it to be a different movie. I just look at what it did and I'm like, I don't know if this is the thing that I enjoyed, I guess.
Yeah.
We can talk. Well, obviously we'll talk about it, but
Yeah, we should definitely talk about it because
I'm not angry about it. I just feel I'm left feeling like dumbfounded, I guess is the way to put it.
But that's actually like that's a novel way to feel after a movie these days.
That's fine.
In my opinion.
That's fine. And that's
I was gonna say, like, I think I would feel satisfied to be like, oh, what the hell did I just watch? I felt more like, it was not a waste, but I would have rather have seen something else.
All right, don't review the movie while
That's what I said. I didn't say anything.
You started it, Schnars.
I know. I'm like actually really interested to talk about this movie now. Hey, should we decide really quick up front? I am not available for the podcast next week. However, there is a release. It is a film called Friend Request. Are we covering that?
It seems like we maybe should. I mean, there's nothing else in theaters we can like give a bulk to, you know?
Yeah, it's rated R, which actually
that's actually very
PG-13 written all over
interesting,
yeah. It's only an hour and 32 minutes, so I'm sad that I can't see it because that is a neat and tidy little film.
And you know what? We all were like joking about seeing Unfriended, and then it was on my top 10 list.
No, this is going to be much worse.
Oh yeah, no, I understand, but still.
Oh, Eric, this is from Entertainment Film Studios. The guy the guys who made 47 Meters Down that we joked about for a while.
You keep breaking up, Schnars.
Yeah, you guys are like all breaking up for me. Is it my end?
That means it's your problem.
He also sounds like he's like in a fucking like woodshed or something. What is going on?
I also just had Giphy open, which may have been causing the issue.
Let me just restart my machine. I gotta restart my entire machine.
I gotta pee anyway. Andy, you gotta turn on your video there, buddy. Beautiful. Love it.
What up?
All right.
What's up, girl?
We're live on the internet.
Up?
We're live on
We
the
are
internet,
live.
BT dubs. I'll be right back.
So you're telling me to not take my shirt off?
I think that's the opposite of what Eric was saying. That you definitely should.
Just a tease, that guy. How's it going?
Pretty good. What's up? What's been new?
Well, I'll tell you what, sister. Just gearing up for BGH 10 all the time.
Yes, that's a full-time job.
It almost is. I think I need to ask Shars to double my paycheck of $0.
Yeah, you need double the cases of beer just delivered.
Yeah, I was gonna say I will accept payment and drink. That's fine.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas Roadhouse gift cards. That's what else we need.
Yeah. Because those are actually worth more than the American dollar now.
That doesn't surprise me. Or, maybe just like the plastic test tubes, because I can only find the glass ones. And it's like, how am I supposed to make a margarita with glass test tubes?
Right. We're trying to be safe here. We don't want to have like a blended margarita with like little pieces of glass in it. This isn't Oz. I don't go that way.
That's a different ending to the night, I think. Oh man.
So dark.
So dark.
How are your puppies?
They're good. They're crazy.
Yeah.
They're actually so Murphy has a little bit has some emotional baggage, and the newer one, the girl, thinks that being alive is the best thing in the entire world. So she's helping though, so that's nice. She's super talkative, and Murphy was never talkative. So now he and her like to sing duets all the time, and I'm just like, oh god, I don't know if that's what I wanted.
I love it. I mean, you must be really happy. You're in a single family, right? Like it's not like you're a duplex where you're connected to somebody.
Yeah. So we have our own house, but my brother-in-law lives with us, but luckily he's in the in-law suite. So
in-law suite.
it sounds big and it's not, I promise.
It's probably your in-law suite's probably bigger than my entire apartment. I guarantee it.
I mean, it's like 600 square feet. So
yeah, my apartment's 750. So
okay, so it's just it's smaller. At least it's smaller. But yeah, they're I love it. They're just crazy. So I'll be sad. I wish they would come to Milwaukee with us. Just
You can't just like put them in a hoodie and put them in a seat next to you.
No. Murphy can wear a hoodie by himself, so I don't think he's gonna fit anywhere.
Dogs.
He's almost 80 pounds.
Oh man, I want to meet that dog so bad.
He's such a chunk. I love it.
So I've been hanging out with 2 Boston Terriers a lot lately, and I'm not a fan of the little dogs, but these are pretty good. I do like these dogs.
I'm only I don't mind big dogs, but I'm much more of a little dog person. I feel like I understand, like I have an understanding with little dogs. Like we both experience the world in very similar ways. Like I don't relate to a big dog at all. Like I don't know what that's like. So there's like a real kinship I feel with another animal that is always worried about being stepped on.
Sure.
I can see that.
Are we live on the show right now, or?
Yeah. We're just truth talk. Live your truth.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
That's a refreshing.
Shirt on at least.
That's a refreshing sentiment on the show when I'm always being held down. Told not to be myself.
We're always doing that. I know it's tough for you.
All right, I'm ready to go. I want to fucking talk about this Halloween bullshit, and we should probably like at least reiterate some aspect of the 10-year. Is there something specific? Like we don't need to go through the whole spiel, but maybe just saying,
well,
here's how.
No, Andy's got all kinds of shit.
Okay, good. Well, go ahead.
There's one specific piece of news we can hit, and then
You surprise me, Andy. I like to be surprised. All right, you guys go ahead and mute, and then we'll go.
Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I will be your host for this evening as we review Mother? No, it's more of a question mark. It's more like Mother! As Joe might say if he were here, tell your children not to walk my way. I am the host of Bloody Good Horror. Joining me tonight, first up, we have assembled literally, with the exception of Shelton, all of the fanciest people at Bloody Good Horror to talk about this fancy-ass fart-smelling movie tonight. First up,
huzzah!
The man with a plan and a killer beard, coming to you from Indiana, I believe. His name is Andy.
Eric, I'm just out in these streets making that paper.
Chief member number 1 of Bloody Good Horror 10-year street team. Andy.
Yeah.
He's the whole team.
Exactly. There's so much streets in these teams.
That's right. Next up on the show, coming to you from Hotlanta, Georgia, our Southern Belle here at Bloody Good Horror. Her name is Cece.
Hello.
Also, Queen of the Book Club and the First Men and Symbols.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yep. Last up tonight, joining me on the show, maybe in need of a haircut, if I do say so myself. He is the business manager at bloodygoodhorror.com and just a sexy Nordic bastard. His name is John Schnars.
How dare you think you can win me back with sexy Nordic bastard after that slight against my hair?
I'm just saying, John, I prefer you to be a little better kempt than that.
Listen,
don't you think?
Work, so sometimes I get a little verklempt on my way home, I guess, or just sweaty. I don't know what verklempt actually means. Yeah. Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah. We're here tonight to talk about Mother, probably the most divisive film we've reviewed this year. Should be an interesting conversation. But before we get to that, did you feel the seismic shift in the horror world this week, John?
Eric, you are profoundly impacted by some hard news.
The only thing I have been thinking about more this week than Mother is this piece of horror news that dropped late last week. Do you want to tell me what it is, John?
Wait, I'm not. Is this about the Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes.
Yes. Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back to Halloween.
Also, it's being made by Blumhouse, which is a weird thing. It has a date of like October or September 2018 or something. And it's got to be October, right? And Danny McBride is one of the co-writers of it. Did you catch that?
What?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
And that actually is the one thing that gets me pretty pumped, I would say.
Well, I believe it's going to be directed by one David Gordon Green. Is that correct?
Oh, wow.
Who's that?
Oh, I don't know.
David Gordon Green, he did a lot of well-regarded like indie stuff set in the South, particularly South Carolina, and probably like the early aughts. But then he went on to do like Your Highness and some other comedies.
Yeah, like the Danny McBride films.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe it's going to be a comedy Halloween.
I would not be upset with that. Maybe that's the direction they got to go.
Yeah. It's very strange.
Eric, tell me how you really feel
Here's
about
my
it.
beef.
Like, let's open up the wounds. Let's get it out.
No, I'm actually like not. There's just something. I'm not actually upset about it. I just find it strange that everyone's getting like. First of all, I think I'm at the point in my life where like I don't need to see more Halloween movies. I'm fine. Like I lived through 2 Rob Zombie ones. I don't think there's anything left to just like milk out of this thing. And to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back, like first of all, they're saying like, oh, it's gonna pick up the story after Halloween 2, and it's like, literally, this is the same thing they did with Halloween H2O. They said the same thing. They're like, okay, it's Halloween 1, 2, and H2O, and then they just waited 20 years, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna do it again. We're just gonna ignore all those movies, including H2O now, and guess what? Jamie Lee Curtis is back. I don't know, she's gonna be like have PTSD or something, and she's gonna kill Michael at the end. Like, there's nothing new and interesting you can do with this story. And by bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back, like you hamstring yourself even more because now you're tied to all of that stuff, you know?
You gotta do all
Maybe
that
this is a dumb
franchise
question. I haven't seen H2O, horror confession there, but
so
what, like, does she survive
in
H2O?
In H2O, the story is that she basically went into hiding at some point, changed her name, and she's like the head mistress of this like posh private school in the West Coast somewhere, and she has a son, but she's also like an alcoholic, and she has all these flashbacks all the time and like PTSD. And then on the 30 year, I guess it was 20 years later, H2O, he finds her, and at some point during that night, like she confesses to her son who her brother was and all this stuff because he's like calling her out for being an alcoholic. The movie ends with she stabs him and he dies, and the paramedics come, but then she doesn't believe he's dead because that's actually smart. Why would you believe he's dead? So she hijacks the ambulance and drives away with him. He wakes up, attacks her, and it like flips down a hill, and then he's pinned up against a tree, and she decapitates him with an axe.
That's right.
Then they made Halloween Resurrection, and they retconned the whole ending of that movie to say that Michael switched places with a paramedic who was like knocked out or something. And so the person, she just like beheaded a paramedic, I guess, and he escaped. It was
like a huge like killer looking guy, or
right? Well, no, but that's the thing is like in H2O they went back to like a more first 2 movies kind of normal size dude. So actually like it wasn't that big a deal. But then Resurrection starts with her in a she's in a insane asylum, and he breaks in and murders her. And like that's it. Jamie Lee Curtis is dead. So they're like, it's not even. I don't really care about those movies because I don't think either of them are very good. Resurrection is an unholy piece of shit. H2O is like kind of fine, but it's just like they're. I think what it is, John, is I'm just living. I've lived long enough at this point that I find this announcement to be a really bizarre. Just like I already saw this, like deja vu.
You're just living in the Ouroboros of horror movie fandom, aren't you?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's just bizarre. I don't, and what's even making it weirder for me is that everyone's excited about it, and I.
Who's excited? Like,
dude,
where are you hearing people excited?
Twitter is a buzz. Believe me, search Halloween Jamie Lee Curtis on Twitter, and you'll see people freaking out about it.
Like,
freaking out.
Those are definitely Russian Twitter bots.
No, dude, I am dead serious, Schnars. And people on our Slack are all excited about it too. So anyway,
Oh no, I felt like the Slack response was like fairly muted. But they also might have been put off by your like.
No, it was mostly me. It was all me freaking out about it. I feel like Shelton had a really great point though. That like, isn't it more interesting to forget about all of the Michael Myers backstory and all the thing about him being related to Jamie Lee Curtis? Like, his point was make a movie about the Shape, not Michael Myers. Like, make a movie about a mass killer who kills babysitters and just like do it again and make it different. And he also brought up the point that him being related to Laurie Strode is a total retcon from the second movie. Like, that's not even in the first movie. It's not even relative. It's something that they bring up like 3/4 way into the second movie. And
no, it's part of the. It's like the first scene. It's like the opening scene.
No. The opening scene, he kills his older sister. She just
happens. But aren't you supposed to intuit that she's?
Nope.
I think you are. Yeah, I think it's just straight. She's a babysitter.
It just becomes so much part of the canon that like
family.
No. Her dad is a real estate agent who is trying to sell the old Myers house that's all like dilapidated, and so she goes to that house on Halloween to drop a key under the mat, and he sees her.
And then you hear the sound of a tire being punctured. And loud hissing sounds.
Wow, guys.
Anyway, so I don't get it. I would love to be proven wrong. I do think it's super interesting that Danny McBride is involved. Like, what? I don't know. He seems funny, but I don't know what that means for a horror movie. But also, it's Blumhouse, right? So, who does have some kind of track record of making decent horror. Some shit.
Maybe this is just going to be the Alien Covenant of the Halloween series.
I was going to say, I mean, he was attached to that too, so...
Like Michael Myers Engineers. That's kind of what Halloween 6 was about.
Holy shit. What if they bring back Donald Pleasance and like just like CGI him and he's like having a conversation with himself about how they created Michael Myers in a lab?
So here's my one thing my one way that I think they could do this really interesting. Well, you remind me of it. I think they need to make Jamie Lee Curtis like a Donald Pleasance type figure instead of being a victim like she is in H2O and like, oh, I have PTSD and I'm running away. Like, they need to make her the grizzled, like, I'm hunting him down and I know he's not dead and I wear a trench coat. I don't know. I guess that could be interesting, but whatever.
All right, we should move this to the Eric show going forward. You could do like a 15-part podcast series.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really enjoying just like egging him on. This is my dream.
I'm just so like I feel like I haven't really watched any of the Halloween series.
And then Jamie Lee Curtis, eats some yogurt, has like a really good BM.
It's what we all dream of, Eric.
Hey, it pays the bills. She can't help it if that's what she has to do.
There you go.
Hey, have any of you not been regular? It's terrible.
Probiotics are the nectar of the gods. They are amazing. Andy, on to less divisive news here. Tell me about the Bloody Good Horror tenure.
Oh, it's the exact opposite of divisive because we're bringing people together. Eric, I am really happy to announce that we have a new partner / sponsor coming on board. It is the radio station 91.7 WMSE in Milwaukee.
Heyo.
At the Milwaukee School of Engineering. That's where they record out of. This is by far and away my favorite radio station in Milwaukee. Like every year, they have just amazing like Halloween shows. It's a ton of like obscure like punk and rockabilly and just basically the thing that you would think would be on radios in Halloween parties and movies. That's like always what this radio station is in October. I've got a couple friends that do like shows for them, including like some, electro like goth stuff. They do everything. They do everything.
So they're gonna help us promote?
They are. They're going to help us promote. We got a couple ads that are going to run a couple weeks out. So pretty excited about that. It'll be going over the crispy, clear airwaves. I think the BGH 10 planning committee is hoping to swing a live interview with one Mr. Joe Charnews.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
It was either that or let Eric talk about Halloween and Laurie Strode for 10 minutes.
I would allow it. What's more, they're actually going to be at the celebration at Great Lakes Distillery on Saturday, October 21st. They're going to be playing some music for us, appropriately spooky, of course, and pretty excited to have them.
Nice.
And you can check them out online. It's at www.wmse.org. All kinds of stuff there.
Love it. And if you want to come out and attend the BGH 10 year in Milwaukee, see Reanimator live in 4K, it's 4,000 Ks. Where do you find that information for tickets and stuff?
You're going to take yourself to bloodygoodohorror.com/BGH/back-to-spooky-school.
Love it.
And that's 2 as in T-O.
So that's a midnight screening, and before that we're meeting at it's called the Great Lakes Distillery.
Great Lakes Distillery for libations and trivia contest, currently being engineered by everyone's two favorite Johns.
We're not just drinking before the movie, we're drinking liquor before the movie, which seems like the worst/best idea we've ever had.
Well, I mean, you can have a water or two if you want.
We will also have beer. There will be beer as well.
Fair warning, when I drink liquor, I like to give hugs.
Oh,
Eric, why do you think I'm holding this at a distillery?
It's going to be lots of feelings. Anyway.
Should also add that I wanted to add real quick, the t-shirt order is in. We have a special. It will only be available at the event, limited edition celebration t-shirt that is being currently printed and should arrive early October.
Sexy. And Andy, I think I speak for us all when I give you a hearty golf clap for all the hard work you're doing setting this up. Schnars likes to take credit, but we know that's bullshit.
I do it because I love.
Yeah. It's going to be it's joking aside, it's going to be epic.
Yes.
Very much so.
Legitimately.
Very much looking forward to it. There's a Slack channel for those of you who are patrons and have your Slack invite. You can go check it out. It's Back to Spooky School is what the channel is called. And if you donate now to the show, you can get a invitation to old Slack. Is that correct?
Sure.
Got it.
Schnars?
No confirmations.
I'm waiting for John.
No,
John looks like he's trying to speak.
That was a yes.
Okay, good. All right, guys. Anybody drink anything fun tonight before we roll into the review here?
Got a white ale from Iceland.
A white ale.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. All right, guys. It is time. Let us review Mother.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Fuck the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. Back to talk about Darren Aronofsky's Mother. John Schnars, are you there?
Eric, I am here.
Love it. How is the FBI raid of your home the other morning?
Oh, come on. I don't participate in these Russian shenanigans.
I know, you're a true American, John. I know that about you.
I bleed red and white and blue.
Red, white.
The white and blue part's weird.
And words.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John.
Words.
Darren Aronofsky strikes me as a person who really likes words, specifically maybe fancy words that nobody else has ever heard before.
He's a learned man, I would say. I would venture that he is learned.
He seems like a guy that might bottle his own farts. I'm just gonna say it.
Oh,
I'm not. Listen, I didn't say that as an insult. I'm just saying.
I don't know. There's an implied kind of negative element there, with the farting and whatnot.
You think? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, John. It is time. Please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word is allegory. That's Allegory, a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. It can also just mean a symbol. And it comes to us from the Greek allos, meaning other, and agoria, meaning speaking.
And what does that have to do with this movie?
Well, I mean, we discussed somewhat pre-show whether it was a spoiler to reveal that Mother, I think that's how I'm going to say it going forward, is an extended allegory or just an allegory, I guess. It doesn't. It's implied that it's extended because it's a film. But yeah, this is a 2-hour feature. It was sort of. I mean, I think we'll spend a lot of the time talking about sort of the reception and the marketing, as well as hopefully a little bit about the quality of the film. But I think a lot of the reception of this film is to the fact that it's an allegory, and that might not have been clear to people going in.
It wasn't clear to me coming out, but sure, yes. It was clear to me that it was an allegory, just not what it was.
That's fair. So.
All right, John, tell me what the movie's about.
Mother is the story of 2 characters. I believe they are never given names, and it looks like they're listed as him and Mother. So the titular Mother is played by Jennifer Lawrence. She lives in essentially like sort of an old farmhouse with Javier Bardem, who plays him. Javier Bardem is a famous poet who has sort of had like immense success, but it's been somewhat in the past, and they've kind of retired to this farmhouse where she is sort of the caretaker and the designer. I mean, he makes the point, or we see in the very beginning essentially this like burning sequence that it somewhat appears to be sort of imagined, and it kind of is capped off at the very beginning. This is sort of like in the first literally minute of the film. He puts like a crystal into a holder, and that kind of like resets the entire house. We see the house kind of be reborn from the ashes. And then as they're kind of like talking and interacting with some of the other characters, Javier Bardem reveals that she has kind of rebuilt this house, designed it from the ground up. He sort of describes, and it's her life's work, whereas his life's work is like writing or not writing, as the case may be. And at first it's just them, and they're in this house, and it's sort of odd. They don't live any sort of like normal kind of life. There's nothing else around. It's completely surrounded by greenery. And pretty early on, they're visited by Ed Harris, who plays a doctor. Again, he's listed just as man in the credits here, but he shows up, he tells them that he's a doctor and that he's there to like work at the local hospital, and he needs a place to stay. So Javier Bardem just invites him in, and they start hanging out. And then the next day, the man's wife shows up, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and they are very exuberant in their emotions for one another in front of Mother and Javier Bardem. And so it's sort of, the film has this weird sort of meandering pace to it, where we're seeing the interactions between Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. They're dealing with these now sort of unwanted house guests of a sort, and you're really trying to piece together what the hell's going on. There's vague threats and sort of tension being built up, mainly around the space itself, and just weirder shit continues to happen. There's an element of the Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer's sons show up, and there's this dispute about their inheritance because Ed Harris is revealed to be dying, and that becomes a thing. And eventually Mother becomes pregnant, and then she is actually a mother, and everything sort of begins to snowball really quickly. The poet writes another book. It becomes a huge success. Thousands and thousands of people start showing up at the house, and it just devolves really quickly from there.
All right, Mr. Andy.
Oh.
What'd you think
This guy?
What'd you think of this movie?
Yeah, so I was ready to go into it having one of two reactions. You know, like it definitely is getting that type of polarizing response from a lot of people. For example, our very own Craig wrote a review at bloodygoodhorror.com, and dear Craig gave this film 10 out of 10. He loved it. He really fell for it.
Nice choice of words.
That was not meant to slight you, Craig. On the other hand, like I've also seen a lot of, as Eric would put it, like fart smelling comments being thrown around.
And to be fair, like, listen, I have no problem with like pretentious. It's just a very descriptory term. Like when I say somebody's smelling their farts over this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's all. Yes. It's okay.
I picture the last couple of episodes of True Detective. That's what I picture.
Time is a flat circle. Yeah, all that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was going in expecting to have one of those two reactions, and honestly, like I came out of it kind of completely in the middle. I was like, oh, there was some really bonkers, interesting stuff in the last 30 minutes of this movie. However, like I didn't have like any sort of revelatory response or like any kind of like deep catharsis to the actions that happened on screen. And that's mostly a product of, as we kind of will discuss when it comes to like the allegory of it, no one here is a character. There's not a character anywhere or any real piece of the puzzle to identify with. I mean, the closest we get is Mother, but that's mostly because the filmmaking is like literally forcing you to identify with her because she's in almost every frame. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. If I had to like say one way or the other, I would say I'm a little bit less, I'm not that positive on it, but that's my initial response moving forward.
Cece.
So yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Andy. I probably would not have seen this movie had we not done it for the podcast. And, you know, I tried to go in with a very like blank slate type of, you know, outlook and just kind of let it happen. But I didn't like it. And I am very much in the art world. I'm very much in the symbolism world. Like, I don't know. Everything felt very, like everything felt very heavy-handed to me. I described it as the first time, watching it was like the first time I saw a Mark Rothko painting in real life. And I was just like, so that was it? Like, I mean, for real? So
shots fired at Mark Rothko.
I know. It's bad. And
you're gonna lose your partner.
I had the same reaction to my first real life Mark Rothko painting.
I mean, I can appreciate it as this allegorical opus, and I can appreciate a lot about the movie. I didn't hate it, but there wasn't anything for me to connect to. I mean, there were several situations that I could see myself in as a female with the mother character, but it was just, you know, I don't know. I did a lot of eye rolling throughout the film, so I think that kind of sums it up.
John Schnars.
Guess I'm gonna be the defender of this movie. I honestly have probably swung back and forth on this movie like 15 times since I saw it. I went to a Saturday evening screening. I went in knowing pretty little, like very, very. I mean, I had seen, I hadn't read anything, and I had seen someone mention, I believe on Slack, that it was essentially like an extended metaphor or an allegory of some kind. So I was going in knowing that it was not necessarily like quote unquote narrative, and was to not expect everything to actually be taken at face value or be literal. But I didn't know exactly what that was going to mean or look like. Ultimately, I think it's a really well put together film. I actually would argue a lot of really good tension. It makes you feel feelings, I think, at a lot of different places.
It definitely makes you feel uncomfortable.
Sure, definitely.
Through a lot of it.
But yeah, I mean, overall, like, it's what's most surprising, and there's like a lot of levels of this movie that we could get into. In some ways, the one that I'm most interested in is the marketing and the decision to take this as wide as they took it, because it is not a movie that is made for general movie-going audiences.
Yeah, this is an art house ass movie if there ever was one.
I mean, it has like it has a lot of stars in it, right? I mean, Jennifer Lawrence is, near the top of her powers. Even folks like Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer are fairly recognizable. And Javier Bardem is an absolutely fabulous actor. I actually thought all the acting was really, really good.
Yeah.
It's just not I was in this theater and there was, I live in New York, so there's a lot of people who like go to movies a lot, and the crowd was very old, like average age, like over 50, if not older. And there were some people like walking in with walkers. It was very strange.
I mean, the base marketing kind of just made it look like a thriller, which is a problem for a mainstream when you pack theaters of mainstream audiences thinking they're going to get like some home invasion thriller or something, and it's this. Like, people in my theater were like out loud complaining when they got out. Like, they were pissed off. And I don't necessarily blame them, because I think they got in some ways sold a bill of goods, and then they were shown a art house fart smelling movie, and they were like, what the fuck is this?
But John mentioned it in the email, like a lot of places got the playbill before the movie, and had I gotten that, I might have been like, okay, I need to take a few more steps back, like if this is what I'm about to sit through. And it's interesting that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of places did. I thought that.
I'm sorry.
I thought that was mainly in like special screenings. So what?
Yeah, they did that for the premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. Yeah.
Basically, there was, and this you could see it online if you Google it, but there was a card that was handed out at some screenings that on the card was something called the Mother's Prayer, which is a reworking of the Lord's Prayer. Mm-hmm. But actually is super helpful in sort of explaining what the movie's about. It's funny because even the poster, and I don't know, Eric, if you put that poster up in the video, the one where she is holding her heart.
Oh my God.
I hadn't seen that poster before. It's actually like, but it's helpful to like see and like process the film.
Well, that one is more helpful than the knockoff of the Rosemary's Baby poster. Like,
yeah,
I would have just stayed with that had I been marketing the movie, but I can also see the comparison to Rosemary's Baby.
Here's the deal with this movie, right? Like, there's two distinct experiences that every person is going to have with this movie, and reconciling them is kind of the problem with the whole thing. And that is that, like, your number one experience is like, or the most important one is after you see the movie, right? And you finally kind of get all the pieces towards the end. And then you get out and you go, like, today I read an explainer. Like, I had my own theory about it. I was kind of off, and I feel kind of stupid about it now. But, like, when you really find out what the movie's about, because clearly Aronofsky had it's not like a Lynchian, like, whoa, what do you want it to be about? Which I also think is total bullshit. But it's like, he has a very clear idea what this movie is going to be about. But I don't think watching the movie, it's like, the actual so you have that experience, right, of going back. Like, I've been thinking about this movie ever since I got out of it, and like, regardless of anything else I say about this movie tonight, that's a real thing and an important thing, and something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, I've just been thinking about the fact that I can't stop fucking thinking about this movie, and especially now that I've gotten some insight as to what it's actually about, like, that process has been very interesting to me. The actual experience of sitting in the theater and watching this movie, I don't think I really enjoyed it. And like, I wish somebody had said to me, not a single thing in this movie should be taken literally. Not just, hey, there's like some symbolism and some allegory here, but like, no. The characters aren't important. The setting isn't important. Like, it's only important in so much as it serves this larger allegory that he's crafting. And so if you're sitting there trying to find like logic in the world and trying to make sense of the actions of the characters and stuff, it's a fool's errand, and it's only going to leave you frustrated because there's no internal logic to the story, and there's not supposed to be.
I mean, I don't know that that's true. Like, I actually do think it's inherently or internally consistent. It's just that.
But like, you're
bizarre.
But nothing the characters do is important from a traditional plot standpoint. And
sure. I mean, the motivations of the characters don't move the plot. Like, there's a plot outside of the characters.
The brothers that show up, right? Like here's my thing, like really strong satire and allegory and stuff. It is only really strong when you can remove it from the story and the story's still really good and fascinating, right? Because
I agree.
Because then when you layer the symbolism over the top of it, it becomes even stronger because it works both ways. But in my opinion, if you ignore the allegory and just try to take this movie at face value, it's like fucking almost unwatchable. Like the only thing that really kept me in it was trying to find things to hold on to and like, well, what is this movie about? And like, it's funny because I don't want to talk about it yet, but I missed like very, very clear clues. And I think I missed them because everything that happens is weird. And so every second my brain's trying to process a new friggin' weird thing that's happening. And what happened was I got so lost in the weeds of up close of every little moment that I couldn't step back and like really see it for what it was. Like it's one of those rare moments when I wish I had known exactly what this movie was about going in, and I think I would have appreciated 100% more. And I think a rewatch I would probably like way more. But in the theater, I just was like stone face. Like what am I watching right now?
Well, I mean, like this movie in particular, Aronofsky is very much like making a film that's kind of in line with something like what Louis Buñuel would make.
Right.
Like he's making like a film that's
I don't know who that is.
No, he's a Spanish filmmaker that's like known for like his surrealist films, and in particular like from like the 50s through like the 60s and into the 70s, I guess. He like, for example, like one of the plots of his film is that there's like a dinner party and none of the guests can eat or none of the guests can leave the room. And so it's just kind of like putting you in this space, and all of these individuals that are in that space are inherently types or they're suggestive of ideas. And so he's trying to make a film that's like that. But the problem with it is that type of filmmaking has been out of vogue for so long, or it's the fact that like that type of filmmaking is relegated to like, you know, MFA programs. Like, and I don't mean to say that in like a disparaging way, but it's kind of like he's trying to get his hands dirty and like mess with all these ideas. And it's just, this is not the context for that type of message. I mean, I would also argue that the ultimate message of the film is very timely, but it's just, it's difficult to separate it from its release strategy, I guess, is where I'm getting
back. Yeah. That's where I come back to, like, I think, and again, and Eric, you sort of just made this point, like, if you go back or if you watch the movie knowing generally what it's about, but maybe not all the specifics, like, it's hard to argue that it's not a really well-made film. Like, it's again, like, I found myself affected, like, just by some of the like visual tension that was going on in the film. I felt the performances were really impactful, even though the characterization wasn't really strong. Especially, I mean, listen, like we can talk about the whole kind of like her actually becoming an actual mother and some of the shit that comes along with that. I mean, oh boy.
I mean, it's worth saying that the last 30 minutes of this movie basically crescendo into a sequence that according to that article, they refer to as the fever dream when they were filming it, which is what I would have called it. Like, it just, like, visually the last half an hour is really stunning in a lot of ways. It's still frustrating because you're just like, what the fuck? Like, you're trying, it's only getting more nonsensical as the movie, like, careens into that third act, but you can't turn away from it because it's just, like, it's very stark and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally watching a train wreck. Like, I mean, in that visceral, like this raw feeling that you get of either like confusion or just, you know, enamored, like disgust. It's really strange that it's such a that fever dream sequence is so impactful in comparison to the rest of the film, because I agree, like the last 30 minutes were really interesting.
It's like anything, right? The build-up actually makes it even more. I mean, you've sat through a lot and maybe even at times gotten like a little sleepy. And so then when it hits, I mean, I would argue from the time she gets pregnant, which is probably there's about 15 minutes of her being pregnant before it kind of ramps into the full-on fever dream
it's
sequence.
Implied that her pregnancy is kind of like his like impetus for like writing his like poem that inspires a lot of people.
I want to call it out specifically because it comes like right at the beginning of, well, it's So that basically what happens is once he gets his sort of creative verve back, he writes another book. We get Kristen Wiig introduced, which I thought was like a great sort of just
so
weird
random.
shot of adrenaline in this.
So random, yeah.
It was so random, and she has in some ways like one of the most fucked up sequences I think, you know, which whatever, we can get to it, but there's this like first pass where there's a party essentially to celebrate the book, and there's a lot of people there, but it's not quite crazy level at that point. One of my favorite sequences is when people keep sitting on the sink and she keeps telling them to not sit on the sink, and she's getting like really worked up, and it becomes like a thing. And then finally these two people are sitting on the sink and like fucking with her, and it just like explodes. And that's like kind of the beginning of when things really start to go downhill. It's when there's a quote where she says, they throw everyone out, and she says something to the effect of, "I need to go deal with this apocalypse." And that's like, I think it's like the next day, essentially, in movie time at least, that things really start to go off the rails and people really start to show up, and it accelerates super duper quickly from there.
So let's talk about what it means then, because I think we've pretty well covered, like, hey, this was all our experience watching this movie. You know, I don't know, Schnorrs, you want to take a whack at this and just like tell me what the allegory is here?
Why? Well, you have either Cece or Andy on the show, and you have me. Yes, come on, let somebody help.
We know who his favorite is here. We all know our places.
Andy, why don't you give it a shot? I force Cece to explain stuff every week here on the show.
All right. Well, I'll just kind of like speak to, again, like my perception watching this. And like after we saw it, we kind of like got on email and we discussed it.
Did you read the thing that Schnorr sent?
Which thing?
The article,
the Vanity Fair article,
where they really clearly lay it out.
Oh yeah, I read that after I sent my response.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So like after we like sent our initial reactions, Schnorr sent out this Vanity Fair article where they talk about like what does it mean, and so like that kind of acts as like your signpost as you're experiencing the film, like what you should be kind of inferring by like all these instances. One of the things that like really jumps out at you from the beginning is honestly the moment in which the house kind of comes back into being. Like as soon as I saw that, like you're essentially witnessing a fire kind of like suck back into itself as like Javier Bardem placed this crystal on the pedestal. And I feel like that's like, I'm going to try really hard not to use the word obvious or clear, because there's nothing really obvious or clear in this movie, but like that's like a gesture towards the viewer that like this is what's going to happen at the end.
Right. It's very blatant that that's what's going to happen.
That was
good
like a
word
really,
for it.
I was going to say like that was a very clear signal, even if you didn't know that this was allegorical, that like something wonky was going on for sure.
That there's some kind of there's some kind of inner mystery to the story.
Right, because that's how you're actually Mother as a character is revealed to you, because she actually rises up out of a bed of ashes, and then her form is there, and that's when Lawrence takes over. And so as the film progresses, you start to realize that this Ed Harris character is actually kind of has some like postmarks of being a quote unquote Adam figure. And there's this one sequence in which he's like throwing up in a toilet and he's naked, and you can see like a wound like in his ribs. And then after that sequence, that's when Michelle Pfeiffer shows up, and she's kind of got this mawkish, like kind of very kind of, I don't want to say like flirty, but you know, just kind of mischievous attitude about her. And she's like offering all these different characters, different things as quote unquote, I hate to use these terms, but like that's very much how the film is like boiling it down. She's like the Eve of the group. Then the two brothers show up, and one of them like literally kills the other one within, of course, like 3 minutes of being on screen. And so like then you have your Cain and Abel and so on and so forth. And then at that point, the film kind of is showing you all of these Old Testament stories, and you're starting to realize that this mother and this quote unquote him with a capital H are actually just like kind of manifestations or personifications of some type of God, most likely the Judeo-Christian God, and she is symbolic of Mother, or like Mother Earth, or like nature.
So I just have to say for the record that I had no idea that's what the movie is about, and I totally so clearly see it now. But like I said, I was like in the weeds with it, and I actually had this whole other theory that kind of like, interestingly enough, like I picked up on the archetypes but just interpreted them in a different way.
I think your theory of it still makes sense. Like, I
Yeah,
think it
for sure.
actually like is totally a valid read on it.
No, and where Eric was actually like basically where I got to by myself. Like the big thing is I did not pick up on the Adam and Eve stuff at all.
It's so
And
funny, like because the rib thing specifically, I'm like, that's got to mean something, and how I actually had the thought, I don't know. It's so fucking obvious now when I look at it. It's so funny.
Well, I mean, like that's the thing. That's the thing about this particular film, and I think it's something that is not necessarily successful, is that he's trying to ground it aesthetically in something that's very raw and like real.
Right.
Like the camera is very close to everybody. It's very shaky. There's not a lot of like heavy effects or lighting play. It's very monotone, except for a couple sequences in which you see like this weird organic mass in the house. And I think that that's not really tipping you that you should be thinking about these people or this setting in any particular way. And so I think that that's part of the reason why it's kind of difficult to get a read on.
Yeah, I mean the other, I think, clue, like some of the other clues are visual around. I mean, you just mentioned the mass, the organic. So there's this recurring moment where Jennifer Lawrence puts her hands on the house, and again, it's already been explained to us that she revived and sort of recreated this house, and so she puts her hands on it, and she's able to see into the walls to essentially a beating heart, which over time gets sicker and sicker and eventually withers and dies. There's several shots of the house. It's never in total until pretty close to the end, but there's no roads. I mean, this house is in the middle of essentially green space. It is octagonal, I believe.
Yes.
So it's this really interesting sort of visual setup and that I think tees up this idea. I mean, it's essentially Jennifer Lawrence plus house equals Earth or like home, right? But it's again, none of it's spoon fed to you, which I do appreciate in general. But I think when you do pair that with the fact that there's not, and you guys put it really well. I mean, there's not a plot line that pulls you through other than these pieces. That is what makes it a little tougher sometimes.
And I think it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cece.
Oh no, I mean, I was going to kind of deviate back to what Eric was saying. So please, by all means.
Well, I was just also going to mention that another thing that I find like interesting about this, and I don't quite know how I'm interpreting it in the larger sense of the film as a project, but if you look at Aronofsky's like last couple of films in particular, like Noah and The Fountain, you know, like they're both films that deal with like heavy spiritual concepts, whether that be like reincarnation or this idea of, you know, like what do you have a greater responsibility to, like your real life family or some like ethereal being. But like both of those films like actually play with time in really interesting ways, and The Fountain the most obviously because it jumps like centuries and centuries. But this film in particular, it's so insular and like kind of forces you to abide by real time, that all of the punishing actions and rudeness that the mother experiences, I think that that's part of the reason why people are having such a hard time dealing with it, is that there's not like a break in which you get to ruminate on this. It's almost just like punishing in real time.
It's difficult.
Even,
it's definitely difficult to watch at times, for sure. It's so
yeah. I mean, like, and
so
even
awkward.
when they like go from her and Javier Bardem like having sex, and she's like, "Oh, I'm pregnant." The film just jumps ahead 9 months, so that way she's actually like at term, and then like you go right into another assault. And so I don't know. I mean, like he's dealing with like this cosmic event, which if we're gonna like apply it to biblical texts, happened over like centuries or I'm sorry, like millennia even. And he's like condensing it into the course of what, like a couple days, 9 months, and then a couple other days. So it's very strange.
But it's also not a literal telling. I mean, this is where I'm fine with it, right? Like it's
sure, yeah.
He's making an allegory. Right?
Well, it's funny because like the more we talk about it, and the more I'm sitting here staring at like these stills and this poster, and I'm thinking about like Jennifer Lawrence's performance, like and I don't think I've ever felt this way about another movie. I kind of love this movie, but I kind of hated watching it. And I really don't know how to like reconcile those two things, to be completely honest with you. Like, is this on my top 10 or my bottom 10? I don't really know. It's like, but what I do think is clear about this movie, and I've seen this said this week, and I think I agree with this 100%. Like, this is going to be looked at as somewhat of an important piece of filmmaking, and I think that it will be looked back on and studied and debated, I think, for a long time.
But I really think that
You're
that's
just quoting Seven.
I really think that that's it's very interesting that we're having this particular type of conversation about the film, because like you kind of brought up, Eric, in the email, like outside of all of the biblical allegory that he's making, like on a more surface level, you have a poet who is a creator who is literally sucking the life out of his wife, out of their life together, to create this thing that he loves so much, but that he's putting out into the world for everyone else. And then once everyone else has it, we get dumped into this fever dream of people adoring him, people like making him a martyr, to people like literally having it this like civil war, like it's really interesting that it's so divisive of a reception about a movie that is exactly that. Like it's
yes, totally. Well, 100%. That's kind of why, like, so yeah, I interpret it as without really any religious things. I interpret it as him being a creator. Yeah, and like the baby basically being his artistic endeavor, and like you have to, when you become so popular, the way I was reading a lot of this was that like when you become so popular, like you basically at first you don't own your creations anymore, and then it goes beyond that to where like you don't own anything in your life. Like people keep, when they're in the house, they keep saying to Jennifer Lawrence, like, she's like, this is my house, and they're like, oh, sweetie, that's cute that you think it's your house, and it's like,
which like,
and I just was thinking, I was thinking a lot about the way, and I think this is this is probably just more testament to like where my head is at, like never thinking of religion, but always thinking of nerd things. I was just thinking of the way that like we as fans, just like Game of Thrones, right? It just came and went, and it was like, we obsess so much over stuff like that.
I mean, and you were literally just upset about Halloween.
Yeah,
for like 20 minutes. And this is the exact
but it's
thing
still
we're
upset.
But
we don't bring it back.
We don't.
I'm sorry, that's true.
We don't just obsess over the thing itself. We obsess about the way that we love it and the way you're supposed to love it. And like I looked at these warring factions of humans as people arguing over the way you're supposed to love something, and like and then literally when they get their hands on the baby, which is this thing that they're ostensibly like yearning for, they literally destroy it because they were destructive. And so I almost was looking at it as Aronofsky as a creator ruminating on both the things that make creators, the negative aspects of being a creator, and also like and also like the negative aspects in himself, and then also the negative aspects in fandom and stuff like that. But and it's funny how when I look at it now, you can really layer those two allegories on top of one another in some ways. Like like the creator as literal the creator,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I mean, like I said, I didn't like the movie, or maybe I should say I didn't like watching the movie, but I'm with you. Like, I think that it's a great piece of art, and I appreciate the multi-layers that and like effort he's put into it, because it like, I agree. Like, I think that this is super smart and very clever, and it will be discussed for quite some time, but it's just, I don't know.
But it's like, do I recommend it?
You're not getting that Rothko cred back.
Oh no! Listen,
anytime,
no, I will stand by that. I will die on that hill. I promise.
Let's talk. So I just want to mention too, because like we didn't really say, like I think that Jennifer Lawrence is really great in this film. Like she really has to carry it, because the vast majority of the movie is literally told in like a very uncomfortable close up of her face as she is just trod upon and harried and like walking around this house with all this bad shit happening to her. So I think she does a really great job of carrying this. The other standout for me really is Michelle Pfeiffer, who's like, she has these little moments, Michelle Pfeiffer, where she goes back and forth between being mischievous and then being menacing. Like, and all it is a look, like a turn and a look. And it's just like, I really came away thinking she was really, really strong in this movie.
I don't know that
particularly when they come back to the house during the wake.
Yeah.
Like
that scene is so disorienting because like literally the dude. So you talk about time in this movie, the dude just died, like an hour earlier, and then when they show back up to the house, they're all in like different clothes. They're all like they're going to a funeral at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's 100 people with them, and it's like it's so disorienting. It's like really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also just say that if anyone ever shows up to my house uninvited, like I will legitimately lose my shit. Like it doesn't matter if I love you, like don't show up at my house uninvited ever.
I was gonna make one quick plug for Javier Bardem. I actually think he's awesome in this. Like he's kind of playing like almost a doofus a lot of the time. There's like a doofus element to him.
He's
very self-involved.
Yeah, he doesn't realize, or like he thinks he's a better poet than he is, or like he's very.
The results kind of speak for themselves. No, I don't know. I mean,
but he has no self-confidence either.
He's well-intentioned, but uncritical in his thing. He's not thinking very far ahead. A lot of it, in the way. When
you talk about those actions, like that character is actually super fascinating in the context of like what are we saying about God here?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I think Javier's performance was great and he was super, super effective, but like the selfish motivations that I felt behind his character was what was menacing for me. Like he seemed well-intentioned when he was like, oh, well, of course they don't have anywhere to stay, or, oh, their son just died, but they were there literally for him to begin with. And he would there would be these slight, kind of comments to Lawrence's character, like, well, I mean, they're here for me. Like, I can't turn them away. Like, of course they've traveled this far for me. So it was really interesting to see the audacity behind those motivations.
That actually, that makes me think of a question that I had after I watched it. Like, do you, as a viewing experience, as you were sitting there watching it, did you kind of get, or at least kind of empathize with Lawrence's decisions to just kind of go along with things, or were you just so frustrated by her that you weren't buying anything that she was doing?
I wasn't frustrated by her. I was frustrated again, not realizing what I realize now, that just don't take anything in this movie literally. But I was frustrated by her relationship with Bardem and the idea that he wouldn't see what he's doing to her.
Right. And I think that's what bothered me. And
it's probably in hindsight the point.
Right, exactly. I also think that because I've seen Lawrence in such strong female character roles before, that I kept waiting for her to snap sooner than it eventually took for her to do so. But I really thought that it was interesting to have her not complacent, but her so palatable to his needs for so long.
But knowing, but understanding now, okay, she's literally Mother Earth. Her sort of her meekness and her naivete, or whatever that is. It's it's not naivete. It's it's
almost just generosity.
It's innocence,
right.
Innocence and generosity, and that is the dynamic of the way their kind of relationship would be, right?
And I mean, it makes sense in hindsight, but as someone who is in a serious relationship who's trying to have a life with someone else, it was super frustrating that I was like, why is this happening?
And again, it's but you're
John snarls it every day with Eric.
By starting the movie though with the crystal, I felt like it was a mystery that I was trying to put together, but the pieces are not the pieces of the mystery I was trying to put together or something. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
No, I get what you're saying.
There's no plot twist you're going to figure out, right? Because there's no fucking plot. It's all everything in the movie is happening. The literal actions are here, but the real movie's up here. And if you don't know what that is, you're stuck down here trying to make sense of this, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's that trope that like you can't see the forest for the trees. And I think that, it's something that needs to be experienced rather than, understood at first. And then, like part of it is this lasting, lingering effect it has on you.
I'm shocked that listen, we don't talk about most movies this long and in this level of depth. That's like, to me, the biggest thing that this film has going is like, it literally is worthy of discussion and kind of unpacking in a way that virtually every film that we see is not all. I mean, there's others that are on the same wavelength. Do we want to touch really quickly on the fact that this got an F on the cinema score? I've heard that referenced so many times, and I find it hilarious.
Well, I've literally never heard of cinema score in my life, so which was not a slight to cinema score. I just don't look at movie reviews, so I guess I wouldn't have. But that's one that's all audiences? Is that right?
It's basically just people coming out of the theater and they're like, "Hey, what did you think of the movie?"
Yeah, honestly, that surprises me not at all, considering what I heard coming out of my theater.
Yeah, like the people coming out of your theater were. Is there anything less than an F? They
were pissed. They were pissed. Yeah. I will say though that there was a service dog sitting in the theater behind me, and I could hear it panting, and it was adorable.
Oh,
just like every moment of silence, I just sort of like.
Give your dog some water, damn.
No, I mean, and we've talked about it on the show before, but the mark of an interesting film is usually when some people give it an F and other people give it an A. Like, that's actually like a movie I want to see.
100%.
Yeah, there were some really people calling this the worst film they've ever seen. I mean, like real reviewers, people who review film as a career, and that's what blows my mind.
Well, it's interesting too. Yeah. Like, it's interesting. Paramount putting out the statement, basically defending it and saying, like, look, this is a brave movie. You've got a director and actors at the top of their games, and they're kind of positioning it as, look, we want to champion these kind of out there stories, and I don't know if it's just them being self-conscious about it, but it's an interesting statement to see out of a big studio and just to get behind it. And again, it's like but
even if they were backpedaling because they were like, oh shit, like no one knows what to do with this movie, like that's still like an admirable position to take.
Also though, but also that back to the release strategy, there's a difference between Netflix putting a Blumhouse Tilt movie up for streaming that, like, guess what? It's low stakes. I don't have to watch it. And if I do, like, whatever, I'm sitting at home, I can go do something else. To like putting a movie from the guy who made Black Swan, which is like an arty movie, but really accessible in a lot of ways, like Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream and The Wrestler and all this stuff.
Well,
and marketing it, like I said, marketing it in the first trailer, making it look like a home invasion thriller or something, like that's tough.
The marketing was definitely a miss. I mean, the reality is Aronofsky. So you mentioned Black Swan. That I actually haven't seen it, but
it's incredible. It's so good.
No, I'm sure it's great. It's not that. It's more that I don't know that that's like a straight narrative film, right? I mean, it did well, but it didn't crush, and I'm sure there were people that were confused.
But here's the thing, like, so, Black Swan is like a straight narrative film with this little like fantasy flair in it that kind of reveals itself, but like the characters are real people, and it's a real story being told, and so it's much easier to stay with it because there's real human emotions and things happening in the story.
But sorry, my point was more that like Aronofsky, if you look at his canon, it's not. This is not a surprising movie for him to have made. So anyone who is walking into this, again, I agree with you that I think it was marketed sort of, I don't want to say improperly. It was definitely misleadingly marketed.
Yeah.
Tons of movies are. This one is different because the downside punishment is much steeper, right? Like it makes people feel dumb.
To think that this movie was going to find a mainstream audience regardless of how you marketed it, I think is folly.
Yeah, was personally a miss. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, on the flip side of all of this, I really want to direct everyone to this tweet from someone named Elena Lazik or Lazik. It is the best thing ever. It's a GIF of Antonio Banderas, and the text is Darren Aronofsky typing the title "Mother" for the first time.
Well, it's
Her
funny.
Twiddle
It's
handle
pretty-
is E Lasik.
It's
You gotta
funny
go check it out.
because it's funny because in the article he tells that story that literally that he wrote the title first and then his hands just put the exclamation point in and he was just like, "That's it."
Well, did you see?
Like it literally, they describe it in the article exactly like that GIF.
I think it was in that Vanity Fair sort of explainer / interview with some of the folks. They also mentioned that it was originally going to be called Sixth Day, as in like the sixth day of creation, which again would have been super helpful to know going in.
You know, so one last particular moment, and then we can kind of start to wrap up. But like, how do we feel about the attack on her at the end? Because it seemed a little gratuitous to me, and like, I don't know. I mean, he's trying to make a point, right? And he's trying to shock you, but it like made me a little ill watching it. It was like pretty.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, Irreversible is a really complicated box of messiness into itself. But like that scene in particular, or that moment in particular, like that's the first thing that popped into my head.
I
It's
mean,
like, holy
he's
shit.
also
He's
also trying to shock you into a point, right? Like
Right.
he's literally
Right,
making
yeah.
he's literally making a movie in some ways about, I mean, like broadly about the environment, but I would think it's got to do with like climate denial, right? And like that's a thing that you feel like what could possibly knock you out of that. So I understand him in that moment trying to be as shocking as possible. Of course, I don't know what the movie's about at that point, so I'm just thinking like, wow, this is really gratuitous.
I mean, I think that the desecration of Mother is, you know, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think that that's his exclamation point. Like, I think that it had to be that intense for him because that's him driving home the point of like,
how
this
important
has been
his
happening
message
to
is.
her
Yeah.
from the beginning and you've just let it happen. You've let it happen. And like, okay, yeah, you're still uncomfortable. But then when all of this comes to, you know, a point, you're just like, oh shit, like this was way too much.
I
And,
gotta say too,
I
like
mean-
a literal shudder went through my theater. Like literally, I could feel everyone just like their heart sinking during that scene. It was
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
I
been
think
the
I had a
only
harder
other
time with the baby. That
Well,
was the
I was gonna
hardest.
say,
Yeah,
the
but the-
baby
but-
scene and Irreversible are the two scenes that I was like, I legit had to like, I thought about maybe like dry heaving.
The baby scene was really fucked up, but but also it's happens a little faster. Like this scene at
Well,
the
it's
end
off
is just,
screen too.
Well, that
sort of.
noise, like,
No, it's not off screen. The baby's neck is not. You see, like the baby's in the
Yeah, yeah.
air or whatever.
God damn it! I think I blocked that out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know what's funny? Like I
We
don't
gotta
know.
wrap this.
We haven't explained anything that's happening right now.
I know. We gotta. We
That's
just
fine.
gotta. We gotta
That's
move
fine.
on here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I like this movie more after having talked about it now, and I think I have a greater appreciation for it. And I kind of do want to see it again now, but I never say this, but I think you're almost better off listening to this whole show. I mean, if you're hearing this now, you just did. But like,
You did.
it's the rare instance.
Congratulations, you are better.
It's the rare instance where I would actually say listening to our show before the movie might help your enjoyment of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think you're completely right.
Thank you, Cece.
I mean,
Yeah.
this plus will always increase your enjoyment of life.
Am
though,
I
so-
favorite yet?
Yeah.
No. Oh, fuck.
Close. Close. All right, Andy, would you recommend this movie? If so, do you think somebody should see it in the theater?
Oh man, you know what? Sure. What
CC.
else are you gonna do with your day?
CC.
I would wait till it comes on VOD.
John Schnars.
I'm gonna say yes. Go to the theater.
Yeah. You know, even if you only occasionally get into like the smelling of your own farts, I think that, especially armed with the knowledge of what this movie is about, there is a lot of interesting filmmaking to be had here. And as much as it's like a studio talking point, I do actually think that this is a brave movie for everybody involved, because it's just so out there. So, yeah.
Check out Craig's review on bloodygoodhorror.com.
10 out of 10. All right, guys. It is time to do some fan mail.
Some say the world will end by fire. Others say it will end by ice. Now, somewhere in the Antarctic, the question is being settled forever. John Carpenter's The Thing. Coming this summer from Universal Pictures.
Hello, this is Jeremy Gardner. I'm the writer, director, star of The Battery, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. That was exhausting. It's funny, like I said to
So much energy.
I said to my wife just before the show, though, I'm like, I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this movie.
So wait, are you saying you're not normally pretty excited?
I get up for it, but it's like,
Okay.
sometimes it takes me a little bit into the show before I'm like really prepared.
I get it.
Hey John, did you see they're making a Boo Medea's Halloween too?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
dude.
the catchphrase for that one is really funny, though. I can't remember what it is now, but I saw
I
it
was gonna say, I don't know
in
what
the
it
cut
is.
up. Let's look.
I mean, have you guys seen the trailer for it yet? I think they might have listened to the show because it seems like they upped the horror.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the upcoming slate. We've got a pretty busy theatrical run here right up through Halloween. But if it's still around the week after Halloween, we could check it out. You know, that's on the table.
Put it on the books. You heard it here first, folks.
Got some Medea GIF action in the video right now.
I'm curious. Maybe you guys want to weigh in on this now. The film I would like us to put on the books is one Geostorm.
Oh man,
God.
really?
Dude, it looks so ludicrous. I'm very
But
excited about it.
doesn't it have like some pretty decent pretty decent actors though?
No,
It
dear
looks-
God.
Oh
no,
no,
no.
that's not the one I'm thinking of though.
It
then.
looks
Dude,
like-
are you thinking of Jumanji?
It
No.
kind of looks like if Seltzer and Friedberg had written, like what's the Ice Age movie or whatever, global warming movie with Jake Gyllenhaal,
And
Johnny
the
Dark.
day after tomorrow.
or like if Seltzer and Friedberg had written literally just like 2012.
I mean, I think we covered 2012 on the show.
I don't remember
So-
seeing 2012.
I definitely saw it in the theater, and it was amazing.
Interesting.
I'm pretty into like extreme disaster films. Like a regular disaster film used to be the thing, right? Like you had Volcano or
Yeah.
even like The Core. Now it's like no.
Dante's Peak.
Yeah, Dante's-
We we also have this fall, John. One Mr. Jigsaw is back for Halloween.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And literally the trailer's like, we're taking Halloween back for Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at whatever we saw most recently before this. Oh, It. Well, we went to see It, and I was out with my buddy who goes to a bunch of these horror movies with me, and he was like, "Did they take the budget that they made all the other Saw movies for and put it into the new Saw film? Like, it really does look like they've increased the budget dramatically. It's very strange."
I'm really curious, like, is this an imposter? Do they just retcon it and have Jigsaw come back? Is this like Carrie Elways with a voice changer? Like, how does this? how does
Eric,
it all
you're
work?
playing into their hands here.
Yeah.
Those are not
Yeah.
legitimate questions.
No, I want to know,
answered.
like, because Jigsaw's dead. So how are they? Is this another fake out, or are they retconning it? Is my question.
Well, it's all,
Guys,
like,
guys,
fake
it's
shit like
when
that.
it ends, it's gonna end with the title card that's Jigsaw : SVU.
Mhm.
That's how it's gonna end.
Love it.
It's like Jigsaw with a lot more rape.
Oh no.
That's what that show's about. It's literally all that show's about. All right, guys.
All right. Do we have any emails, Eric?
I didn't bring up SVU. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. First up, Skylar. Skylar's a patron, I believe. This past week or so, I've been powering through the Nightmare on Elm Street films on Blu-ray, and I sat as a set I received as a gift last Halloween. in a case of perfect timing, just after listening to your latest episode, the next film I had up was Part 5, The Dream Child, which was mentioned during the podcast because it was playing in the theater in it. I'd only seen parts of this movie on TV when I was younger, and I have a very vivid memory of standing in front of the TV, watching a motorcycle gruesomely devour its rider, a scene that absolutely terrified me and captivated me as an 8-year-old. After finally watching this, I kind of understand why a lot of people don't hold this entry in the series in high regard. It gets a bit too goofy with some of the acting, especially in the over-ADR'd graduation scene in the beginning of the film. It's absolutely atrocious. However, the Freddy rebirth and resurrection scene is legitimately awesome, and the rest of the movie has some really fun and freaky effects work. While I don't think it's the best film in the series, I'm not sure it deserves all the hate it gets. I know Eric has said that he's a fan of Part 5, but what does everyone else think of it?
I haven't seen it.
I'm the only one here that has like an encyclopedic knowledge of all of these movies because it was all I watched as a kid. Like literally every week, it was like I either rented a Friday the 13th, a Halloween, or a Nightmare on Elm Street for like 5 years straight, and so like I know all those movies like front to back in a really terrifying way.
Yeah, every time I try to get through a bigger franchise, I always like lose it by the fourth one.
Yeah, I've definitely seen Dream Child. I don't remember it explicitly. Like it'd be one of those things where if I watched it, I'd be like, "Oh, this one."
So Dream Child is really interesting because like, 3 is Dream Warriors, right? Which everybody, pretty generally really loved. 4 gets really wacky. Like Freddy's wearing sunglasses. That's the one where he's like really quipping and stuff. And then 5 is really weird because like every time Freddy's on screen, he's laughing and joking and making just terrible jokes. But the rest of the movie actually has this really great dark tone that I really like. And it's kind of one of the problems of the film is that every time Freddy shows up, it gets not dark and he's just like, but it does have some really amazing effects work. I think that what they're doing with the characters is interesting. And like the whole finale, they're in this church and like Freddy bursts out of this person and it's really cool. Like there's some really neat visual, like late 80s visual effects work in that movie that I like a lot.
So is the Final Nightmare number 4?
No, the Final Nightmare. What is the Final Nightmare? Oh, that's Freddy's. It's Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare.
Yeah, isn't that like 7?
That's 6.
Which just had its like
6?
Just had its 20th anniversary or something.
Yeah,
Freddy's
there's
Dead.
Anyone in Chicago, the Music Box of Horrors is gonna screen it as part of their program.
Freddy's Dead is awesome. Honestly, like it got a lot of shit at the time. I think understandably because it was very like 90s in a way when kind of horror wasn't taking itself very seriously anymore. But you look back on it now, it's a really incredible like 90s time capsule, and it's just like it's like if you crossed A Nightmare on Elm Street with Alice in Wonderland or something. And it was directed by a lady, which is pretty rare in the slasher genre. I'm gonna look it up here quick because it's
Rachel Talayla.
Yeah,
I do not know how to say her last name.
And she had done something else that was interesting. I'm trying to remember what it was now. Also 3D. Talalay. Oh, Tank.
3D.
She did Tank Girl.
Okay.
So, anyway, I highly recommend both 5 and Freddy's Dead. Thank you, Skylar. Next up, Matthew. Hello, BGH crew. Hopefully I send this email in time for the episode. I actually just got out of my second viewing of it and enjoyed it just as much the first time. I was wondering if you all grew up in a town like Derry, what would Pennywise manifest as for each of you? As a child, I was terrified of a giant stuffed eggplant man, think California raisin, and the idea of him chasing me through a sewer is pretty terrifying. Also, did you guys see that commercial for Halo Top ice cream? I think it's the greatest commercial I've ever seen in my life.
That commercial is awesome.
You all are amazing, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the film, Matt. Yeah, they did some weird, like, short horror movie thing, right?
I mean, kind of. Like, it's like a 3-minute long commercial with a robot, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it looks like the closing sequence of 2001 is what it looks like.
Yeah. So, Cece, tell me about your weird, creepy hometown that you were telling us about.
So my hometown is it's even smaller than Derry on screen. And we have a fire station, a library, and several cemeteries. We are literally 20 minutes between 2 like towns. So it's yeah, it's kind of small. The TVA flooded most of all of the farmland, so there's a giant man-made lake that like everyone uses to have a good time on, and you can still see like silos and parts of barns sticking up out of it. So it always terrified me growing up that like I was going to step on a dead body, or that there were people who didn't get out in time and just like turned into mutant water people underneath.
That's like, it's like the town that what's his name made that movie about, Ryan Gosling. What was that movie called? Andy
yeah, didn't y'all do it on Sophistical?
Yeah,
Lost,
we
did.
Lost River.
Yeah, Lost River.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it legit like was kind of like that, except it was even smaller than that. So yeah, I know I kind of went off on a tangent in the email, but sorry, it was.
Well, I know you just sent all these pictures, and I'm
bleak.
like, yep, like you.
I took myself on a virtual walking tour of your hometown. It was delightful.
Yeah, it was,
now,
right?
This is the same town with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
yes.
That looks scary.
But as I said in the email, we even had a bully who lived behind me, and he was the cop's, like the sheriff's son, and he was a total dick and would always like screw stuff up. And yeah, it was very it-esque growing up.
Yeah, we didn't have any of that nonsense going on. It's kind of just like one of those regular towns.
I did grow up in
man-made lakes and stuff.
I did grow up in a small town with a lot of woods, which were pretty freaky. But by the time I was spending a lot of time in them, I was usually drunk, so it didn't affect me that much.
Pennywise probably would just have been a clown in mine. I don't know. Yeah.
I grew up behind a giant cornfield, so when I watched Children of the Corn for the first time, that was terrifying.
Yeah. I used to watch that, like, it used to come on, like, I don't know, not HBO, but like another, like, kind of higher end channel. And we used to always watch it at my grandmother's house on the weekends. And she kind of lived in between some pastures. And I was always afraid that, like, the kids who lived in those houses were devil kids.
Outlander. Oh, terrifying.
Outlander, we have your woman. All right, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. John Schnars.
Eric.
Outlander Schnars, do you have our Twitter?
I got it up. Let's start with our BGH classics. These are little callbacks to some of our classic episodes of BGH that folks find after they support us on patreon.com. And you get access to the entire back catalog. It's a great deal. So here we have two from Skizbot. Skizbot's been really pounding through some of these back episodes and hitting us with some real juicy bits. So the first one, episode 118, Elm Street Reboot. Eric says, Casey, how did you enjoy Wienerpalooza? Casey said, I enjoyed Wienerpalooza.
Wow, what was Wienerpalooza? I don't remember what that was.
I don't know. It's a classic Casey Eric, repartee.
Was that right after the time we all first met Andy and he went skinny dipping at Horror on Weekend?
It's up there.
Because that could have been Wienerpalooza.
I like to imagine it was actually a Datsun race. That's what I like to imagine it.
All right, let's keep this rolling. We actually have a lot of SBGH too. So Skizbot, the second one he sends through, actually comes from episode 71, which was the original Nightmare on Elm Street episode. And I believe this is another air quote. You just said pederast. It's got more zip than pedophile.
It really does.
So,
plus you can you can say pederast. So pederast.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's
it's
on board for that.
It's like if Schnars wanted to do a word of the day for pedophile, he'd say pederast. In fact, that may have been your word of the day for all.
It could have been. So this next one comes from Maureen. That's at Mr. Finn 607, and she writes Joe's annoyance with boobs in Paranormal Activity 2, episode 192, and the quote is, "Let me put on a looser tank top and we can catch this ghost. Let's talk by the pool. Let's talk in the pool in bikinis."
Yeah, that was pretty...
I don't remember.
No,
film.
So in the second one, so if you remember, the second one kind of takes place concurrently with the first one, and it's like
that's the one with the big house that you got upset about,
yes,
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the wife in the second one is the sister to Katie from the first movie, and at some point, Katie comes over and they have like actually a fairly important conversation of the plot where Katie's telling her about some of the spooky shit happening, but they're both just like in the pool in bikinis, just like all cleaved up, and it's a whole thing.
I like that Joe's upset about them wearing loose tank tops.
I think we were just joking about it. It was a little gratuitous.
Yeah, I mean, come on, is that possible? No, I'm sorry. Here we go. We're moving into SBGH. So the first one comes to us from @RealJoeScar. He says, if Skarsgård's Pennywise was hiding in the pit of one outhouse and Curry's Pennywise was hiding in another, which would you poo in?
Wow.
I would just hold it. I would just hold it.
My pants.
I would say Curry's because he would at least make a good joke about it first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm with Andy. It's a gross question, but well done. Next one comes from our buddy Joe. That's @ThatBaseballJoe. He says, have you watched HBO's Room 104?
Yes. I really like it.
Not yet. They're good?
I haven't either, but I am into it, and if Cece liked it, that makes me even more into watching it.
Oh, thanks.
Just the deuce.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also deuce. Okay, the next one comes from our buddy Robel, Rodrigo. He says, am I the only one who'd rather have every ghost from the Wanaverse in my house than a bunch of random strangers?
I would legit take every horror monster ever before I had a bunch of randos in my house.
You were real worked up about that, even pre-film.
I got out of the movie. I went to like a 10:45 showing, so I got out at like 1, and I called Kyle and I was like, dude, do not ever invite people over to our house and me not know. And he was like, I think we've already had this discussion. And I was like, all right, well, that's my take from that movie, is that it gives me hives to think about.
1 a.m. or p.m.?
a.m.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
What if it's a surprise party?
I mean, I went to the 10:45 a.m. showing, so I got out at like 1 p.m.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was first thing Sunday morning.
That seems more reasonable.
In a similar vein, Skizbot @Skizbot asks, not sure if reading too much into it, but Mother is about the horrors of home repairs and uninvited dinner guests, correct?
Yeah,
totally.
No, that's the Money Pit.
Also true. Okay. King Township Fit, says, does Mother deserve that exclamation point, or would some other punctuation be more accurate? Like period or question mark?
A question mark would fit with the movie more, but with what he was going for, I guess I understand the exclamation point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Although I agree with Schnars, the 6th day would have been a much more helpful title.
It could have been an Oxford comma. It could be Mother, the 6th day.
There you go.
Or an ellipsis.
The 6th day, when Mother gets punched in the face over and over.
Lord.
Next we have @HeyMose with an underscore there at the end. Did any people walk out of your theater before it ended?
No, but there was a guy that got up out of his seat, walked towards the aisle, watched 5 minutes of it standing, and then went back to his seat.
Well, that says something that he went back.
And then, as I was sitting there watching the credits, he got up and he was leaving, and we were like the only 2 people in the theater because it was like Monday at noon. And he's like, "So did you like it?" And I was like, "I don't know yet." He's like, "I did," and then he left.
That's great. You know what? That's a positive story.
I like that guy.
Yeah,
he's good.
That's a guy who's willing to tough it out. You know, maybe not for maybe almost gave up there, but he toughed it out. And
he might have. Yeah.
That's great. I really like that.
There you go.
Yeah, I forgot what I was.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone walked out of my theater. I was pretty close to the front.
Oh, a dude went to the bathroom in my theater at like what seemed like a very important time when something important was happening. I'm like, I will literally pee my pants before I get up out of my seat in a movie. Like, you're gonna miss something, dude.
Yeah, that's why there's so much urine at your theater.
I would seriously, I would have to be in danger of getting like a physical, disorder.
No, I'm powering right through that disorder. There's no way I'm getting up.
I'm saying, I would nearly do damage to myself before I got up out of my seat.
I basically spend most of my time the day that I'm going to see a movie, like really finely tuning my liquid input so that I don't get dehydrated but I don't have to pee during the movie.
See, my problem is I like to go in with beers, sometimes more than one. And
this is
that'll get you in trouble.
It's very important because I can handle it a little bit, but if I have to there's a point where you have to pee so bad you stop enjoying the movie because all you're thinking about is how much longer is this goddamn movie.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it rolling. Mr. Stoner, our buddy at Mr. Stoner 82, he says, "Were they kept in the dark for life?" I have no idea what that means. That's what he said. Ask BGH.
I got nothing.
All right, there, guy. Hit us up. Hit us back up and let us know who they were and what dark. This one, I guess that's the at Bloody Good Horror, at BG Horror, added the hashtag, so I'm just going to read this. So Craig said, "The revelation that Joe was on both Oddville and Jenny Jones due to inverted nipples. I feel like this should come up more often."
It's funny because, like, it's just one of those things that I thought everybody knew that, and then I really thought about it. I'm like, no, literally we told that story like a decade ago in the show, and maybe it's come up once since then. So I'm really happy that we had... The hilarious part is we had an actual, like, real reason to talk about it, which is the kid's inverted nipples in it. So
when you were telling that story with such casual casualness, I was just floored.
Yeah.
I was like in my kitchen listening to it, just like laughing.
I mean, I wish somebody I'm sure can do this for us, but like if you go back and find the episode when we actually learned of that story, I'm sure reaction was much more in line with what you would expect.
Well, it was and it was like probably Joe's first or second.
It was pretty early,
time.
Yeah.
So Craig actually wrote back in and said, and added the SPGH himself and said, "Yes, I want gory details of Joe's inverted nipple mass media journey." So, you got ask and you shall receive.
I mean, the funniest thing is like, and this is just the funny thing about Joe in general, and this might be another thing that I guess people don't know, so we don't talk about it that much, but it's like Mark and I are brothers, and we kind of started Bloody Good Horror originally. My Joe was actually good friends in like middle school age with my older brother. Like we all went to the same high school, but then they stopped hanging out in high school, and I didn't think about Joe again until like 10 years ago when we became Facebook friends, and he started posting about horror movies, and somehow we started chatting, and I found out he was big into horror, and I told him I did the show, and he's like, I think he said he was a listener. Maybe he wrote in or something. I don't even know. But then we invited him on the show. Like it's just a weird life thing. Like we just connected again through the internet, and then through the years, I've learned like so many more insane things about Joe just through the course of like doing the show. It's been a journey for sure. Much like the plot of Mother, it's a journey with Joe.
And one of those days, we'll take the lint out of his inverted nipples and sell it for a mint.
Oh, Christ.
Gross.
Yeah, Eric, the only question is which one of you is Javier Bardem and which one of you is Jennifer Lawrence?
Well, that is a good question. I think I'm Javier Bardem and Mark is Jennifer Lawrence. And Joe, who's Joe? Joe's Kristen
and Joe
Wiig.
is Ed Harris.
Joe's Kristen Wiig.
No, Joe is Kristen Wiig. Yeah, that's perfect.
Joe's just an agent of chaos, basically.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got one more here, and it's not really a question, but I'll read it anyway. Bruno the Weber asks, or he just says, hashtag SPGH. The title of this movie reminds me of this Family Guy scene. Sorry, I don't really have a question. And he links to the YouTube video of it's with Stewie just saying,
Mom,
Mom,
Mama, Mother.
Yeah, it's a good one. So yeah, that's what we got.
Man, I'm exhausted.
It's an emotionally draining film.
That was so much thinking. That was too much thinking for
a lot of thinking.
A Tuesday night, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow night, though, Big Brother finale. Get excited, Schnars.
No thinking required there.
I would disagree with you, but that's for maybe an episode of the Eric Show.
There you go. So coming up next week, I'm very excited because I don't have to be on the show, but I actually am excited to listen to a discussion of a friend request.
What are you doing to us?
That the burgeoning subgenre of social media related horror films.
I'm gonna call this.
We've all been demanding.
I'm gonna call this friend request. ... You never know. Maybe it'll be alright.
It is. We were talking about a pre-show, but it is rated R, which I was very surprised about because the trailers have a distinct PG.
I don't know. Annabelle Creation was rated R. I have no idea why.
And that was one of the things about Unfriended that ended up like really working in its favor, is that it was pretty gory.
Yeah. And then right hot on its heels, we have Flatliners, which I am actually somewhat interested in.
I'm calling it right now. Flatliners is hot garbage, and that's my prediction.
That's not like a risky position to take, Eric.
Well, just based on the trailer. And they have a new trailer out where they're trying to make it look it's all like cut to a song, and it looks just
That's
as
the
bad.
only one I've seen. I've only seen that trailer.
That one doesn't look so bad.
I think they heard us.
The first trailer looked like total garbage.
I think they heard us complaining about how bad the first trailer was, so they fixed it.
Oh. Well, now I'm less excited.
Yeah.
And then we have a 1 week break, and then we come back hot and heavy. Happy Death Day, The Snowman, and then Jigsaw. I'm assuming we're covering Snowman.
Am I
we
the
can
only
discuss
one
it
that thinks The Snowman looks terrible?
I'm actually really excited for it.
And I love.
Did you read the book, CZ, or do you know anything about the books?
I've read. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. You might be right. I have thought about reading it, but I have not. So
I thought you were.
If it's a serial killer movie without Morgan Freeman, I'm not interested.
I thought you were asking. I thought you were asking me if I read the book, Schnars. I was like, oh, child.
Check out, please. No, I haven't read them or read it. I think the guy is a famous writer. I don't know if it's part of a series or just a one-off, but yeah. In any event.
All right. What's most important, though, next week, friend request. Tune back in to hear CC tortured by watching this movie. It'll be fun. This is what you get for agreeing to fill in for Mark while he's out.
That's okay. I will love it, even if it's hot garbage.
There you go.
It's okay.
You got to go in with gusto, no matter what.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for our discussion of Mother. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.